Hey there, Dr. Mike Stair here from Spectrum Fitness Consulting. Listen, I want to share with you guys some great research about a common exercise that can be a great exercise for us, the plank. Now, obviously it's a great exercise for a whole host of reasons. One, it challenges the abdominal muscles. Two, it imparts a relatively low amount of load on these vulnerable tissues of the spine, or relatively more vulnerable tissue of the spine. And three, it can serve to help teach us awareness of proper spine position. So it's a great exercise for a lot of reasons. However, I find it's not executed properly. And some neat research recently validated how we've been instructing and teaching the plank for a while. What they wanted to do with this research study is show various positions in which you could do the plank and see which ones had the best activation of the intended target muscles, the abdominal muscles. And that could be the rectus, the internal, external oblique, and even the transversus. So they had people in one of 4 different positions, which I'll demonstrate in just a minute. And they found that the position that we've been advocating for with our clients for a long time actually activates the abdominal muscles the best. So I'm going to show you what those positional faults are. I'm going to show you what the proper position is. And I'm going to explain why many people don't use the proper position. It's not necessarily because they don't know that it's the right one. It's that there's something that might be impacting whether they actually can do the proper exercise as instructed. So let me get to the ground and I'll show you exactly what the different positions were, which one has the best activation, and what are some of the reasons as to why some people don't do it properly, even when they know how to do it properly. All right, so let me show you what those look like. All right, so let me start by showing you some of the common positional errors. And they actually measured these in the research article. And then I'll show you the right position. And then finally, I'll show you why some people don't do the proper position, even though they know how to do it. So here are some of the postural faults. So a lot of times when people are doing the plank, when they get on the elbows and knees, their back is rounded up and their shoulders are protracted forward. So this is what that tends to look like. So they also want to see about a common postural flaw in terms of the lumbopelvic position. So they also wanted to see, well, if we combine that postural flaw with of the upper body with the common one in the lumbopelvic region, would they see less or more activation of the abdominal muscles? And this is the anterior tilt, or another common postural flaw when we see the plank. And then they wanted to combine all those various forms of the postural flaws. And what they found is that when we had both the shoulder blades back and when the lumbar spine was in what they call a posterior pelvic tilt, it was actually the best position in order to activate the most muscles of the abdominal region. And that's exactly what we've been encouraging. So let me show you what that looks like. So the shoulder blades are actually back, not forward, but back. And then the lumbar spine is not extended, but moving towards a posterior pelvic tilt. And with this position, we have much better activation of the abdominal muscles compared to this position and or this position. So now the big issue is, if we know that, then how come so many people don't do it properly? And there is a very simple explanation for this. Although some people can have good awareness of the lumbopelvic position, they're not hyperextended, they're not hyperflexed, they're in neutral. Oftentimes they can hold that with a little bit of cueing. But the biggest problem I see is that many people are rounding their upper backs, they're protracting their shoulder blades, even when we cue them not to do it. And here's why some people, in spite of getting the right instructions, are not going to do it properly. It's quite simple. The lever arm is too long. When you measure the lever arm when somebody's doing a plank, you really look at the distance between their elbows and their toes. The longer the distance, the longer the lever arm, and thus the more difficult it is. If you shorten that distance, the exercise gets easier. So when the abdominal muscles are too weak to hold the neutral position, which is when the shoulder blades are back and a slight lumbopelvic tilt, then they are not able to hold that position and they default towards an easier position. Let me show you what I mean. So if somebody has weak muscles that don't allow them to do this exercise properly, this is what they'll often do. They'll get into the plank, and they may have this position correct, but they keep their spine, their upper spine, in a flexed position with their shoulder blades forward. They can't get the shoulder blades back because they're too weak, so they either hyperextend or they'll continue to be in this position. What this does is shortens the lever arm. It brings essentially the distance between their feet and their spine closer. So in essence, they're defaulting to this position because they don't have the stability and the strength to do it the proper way. So what do? Well, there's two ways that we can correct this. One, we can elevate them up higher so that their elbows are holding on from a higher position. You can do this on steps, you can do this on a bar, you can do this with your elbows extended, and then again from your hands from various heights and surfaces. The higher it is, the easier. A more direct and I think simple way to measure it, and a more discreet way to modify it, is to use a foam roll. So I have one right here. So instead of making the lever arm go from your elbows to your toes, consider making it go from your elbows to your mid-thigh. So if you take this, or any foam roll will work, and to start, place it so it's just below the hips, right around the mid-thighs. What that does now is it actually reduces the lever arm in half. Instead of going from your elbows to your toes, it goes from your elbows to the foam roll. And then as it gets stronger, you can move the foam roll further down your legs, thus lengthening the lever arm, and that can go further and further down towards your leg until eventually you get down back to the standard form, which is your elbows and your toes. So that's a great modification that is often underutilized and can solve a lot of those postural issues. Now, with that more appropriate dosing of the exercise, we can see a proper spine position maintained, thus not only get the proper activation of the abdominal muscles, but we can also rehearse and ingrain the proper motor pattern that's required in order to get this awareness of neutral spine, a forgotten but very important element of the whole purpose of these exercises. And then over time, again, you can discreetly improve or increase the challenge until you get back to the basic challenge, which is elbows to toes. So hopefully that helps out a lot. Not only validates the attention to proper technique, but also gives you a way to progress or regress based on your inabilities to do them properly, and then essentially make it harder when you're able. All right, thanks a lot for tuning in. Hope that helped out a lot. Take care.